This is not a podcast about being broken, although you may have been. This is a podcast about strength for women who find themselves in difficult relationships, including that sometimes difficult one with yourself. We'll look at your relationship through a lens of psychology, faith, and a little dash of my own kind of feminism. We're not fixing them, we're fixing you, and that changes everything. Welcome to Stronger in the Difficult Places. Save yourself, heal your relationships. Listen in. Hey there, I'm your host, Dr. Zoe, and I am so glad that you are here. Happy New Year! This is my first podcast of the new year. We're 2 weeks in now, and I hope it's starting out well for you. The topic today is how your perfectionism affects you. And I thought that this was a perfect topic for the new year because many of us have goals, we have words, we have aspirations, we have desires for the new year, and our perfectionism is the first thing that sabotages it. We all know that whole saying. I think is it the second week in February? Most people give up on their resolutions. You know, I don't make resolutions, but most people give up on them. So it's usually our perfectionism that drives that. And our perfectionism also sabotages our relationships with others as well. So today we're going to talk about how to avoid that this year. But first, I am not sharing a win and fail, although I've had plenty of those over the holidays. I'm going to save that for future episodes. I'm excited to share your words for 2022 instead. Now, I told you I would share my word of the year with you, and I have chosen them, but I do have to also share a crazy win real quickly about my words. My words, yes, I have chosen 2 for the year, and they are speak and present. I've chosen speak, not just in my speaking career, but speak in terms of how I want to be very intentional about speaking and writing words that matter this year. I want to talk about the deep, real things or continue talking about the deep, real things. And I want to create a consistent practice of speaking those. My other word is present, which is about my family and what really matters to me. I tend to be a workaholic. If you guys have not figured that out yet, it serves me in a lot of ways in my life. But my time spent in vacation this past year, and I took a lot of it. I spent a week in Hawaii. I took a month off in June. I took 2 weeks off at the end of the year, and I had a couple smaller trips throughout the year. That time off served to highlight, for me, a couple of things. I have a difficult time doing nothing. I mean, I've known that on one level my whole life, and that's why I've always been busy, but I really have a difficult time doing nothing. And also, I don't always prioritize in the way that I want the things that mean the most to me. So I want to focus on being present in my home life, and I want to focus on speaking with a capital S in my work life. So here's the beautiful win of choosing words to focus on. They manifest something. I talked about this in my last episode. 2 days after I chose my word, I got a package delivered to my door. It was from my book coach, and it was a mug with the words, "I'm speaking." Now, you can call it serendipity, you can call it confirmation, you can call it manifestation, whatever you want to call it. It matters. I call it confirmation. Tiffany, who was my book coach, and now she's really just a friend, when I told her about this, that I had chosen this word 2 days before it showed up on my doorstep. And here's the thing. It was late. She meant it to get to me for Christmas, and it got here late. If I had gotten that mug before, I wonder if I would have even chosen the word. But the fact that I chose the word before the mug showed up and the mug was late, for me, it was confirmation. But Tiffany said, "Well, I know you're a speaker, so it just seemed like the best gift for you." And it was. But it meant so much more to me than that, because it wasn't just about me speaking on stage. Those are my words for 2022, speak and present. And I'm already excited to see how they continue to unfold for me. But I am just as excited for you, every one of you who reached out and shared your words of the year with me, whether verbally or in written form. I want you to know that I am so thrilled that you chose them and that you're now putting them out into the universe. I am honored to hold them for you as well. I am helping you announce them to the world, and I'm excited for how they're going to manifest in your life this year. Some people texted them to me, so I'm going to read those out, and then you will hear them in the voices of people who shared. Happy 2022. And here they are. New beginnings. Settling for more. Determined. No. Self-love.
My word for 2022 is hope.
My word for 2022 is jump. I'm finally leaving my job and starting my business.
So my word for the year is longevity. Longevity for life, my family, health and fitness, and my career.
My word for the year is anchor.
My word for 2022 is harmony.
My word for 2022 is intentional. I want to be intentional with my thoughts, intentional with my behavior, and intentional with my words.
My word for 2022 is dream. I'm finally going to let myself dream this year.
My word for 2022 is boundaries.
My word for 2022 is energize. I want to bring energy to my marriage, to some professional endeavors, and to my workouts. Happy 2022.
Aren't those beautiful words? I am happy to hold them with you guys for this year. So let's talk about perfectionism. First, what is it? Because maybe it doesn't apply to you, or maybe it applies in parts of your life and not others. I'm a queen of done is better than perfect in many areas of my life. I am not a perfectionist. And then in other areas, I'm an unrelentless perfectionist. So for me, in school, I could get an A- or a B and I was happy. It served its purpose. I don't have to be a perfect student. If I'm doing a home project and it's not perfect, fine, it's close enough. If I'm writing a blog even or posting something, I'm just glad to get it finished sometimes. But when it comes to my body, when it comes to my health, when it comes to my relationships or my accomplishments, I struggle. I am a recovering perfectionist in those areas and probably some other ones that I can't think of right now. And I'm very clear, though, that keeping this stance is chasing a vanishing vapor. So that's why I do like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist. The definition of perfectionism is wanting to do our best while simultaneously feeling like we never actually do. Or Dario Crozzo actually put it better, striving for flawlessness and setting high performance standards accompanied by critical self-evaluations and concerns regarding other people's evaluations of you. Does that sound familiar? Crozzo also said so beautifully, the problem with perfectionism is that it's not human. Humans are imperfect. And you probably thought your perfectionism just affected you? Wrong. It does affect you greatly, but it also has a ripple effect on all your relationships, that one with yourself and others. So let's talk a little bit about how perfectionism is hurting you and your relationships, and then a little bit about what you can do about it. So impossible standards. Need I say more? If you have impossible standards for yourself, then you probably also have them for others around you, and that hurts them. Just like your standards make you feel not good enough, they make those in your relationships feel the same way, even if you never actually say those words. In relationships, perfectionists tend to try to control. You might think or rationalize to yourself that you're just helping, I'm just helping out. But really, you desire to control the situation so it comes out how you want it to. I know that sounds familiar. It does to me. You may be overly critical, or maybe you're giving unsolicited advice. You may make comments that indicate that they could have done it better. As a young mom, I knew better than to say those words like you're not good enough or, anything like that. But I didn't realize how my other contributing actions sent the message very clearly to my oldest son, and he often felt not good enough for me. And that's a conversation that I'm grateful that we've been able to have now in his adulthood. And I've had the opportunity to repair some of that. And I'm pretty sure I'm not doing it with my other 3 children because I'm super intentional about it. But the damage did happen nonetheless. Perfectionism can also cause imposter syndrome. You are so down on yourself because you're looking at the deficits instead of the actual positive things you've accomplished that you minimize your accomplishments. My self-help book has sold 20,000 copies, you guys. Less than 1% of authors ever have their books on a bookshelf, and my book can be found at bookstores like Barnes and Nobles. Now, I'm telling you this. Well, I'm really telling on myself because I want you to hear how ridiculous my imposter syndrome sounds. I found myself saying, well, that's good. It sold 20,000 copies, but it's just a little self-help book. It was easy to write. Anybody can do it. Plus, the publisher was really behind it. So if my memoir gets picked up and can sell 20,000 copies or more, then maybe then I'll be a real author. This is imposter syndrome driven by perfectionism. Now, I can shut myself up quickly and I can change course because I do this for a living and I try to walk out what I preach. And I'm sharing this because it's so important that we get a hold of that kind of talk and we uproot it daily. Because this is how perfectionism can allow you to not ever really be present for your life because it will never be good enough. And it doesn't allow you to honor the beautiful things that you are accomplishing because all you see is what you're not. So what causes this? Sometimes it's messages that get passed down to us that we aren't good enough for some reason. Sometimes it's a message that being perfect equals love. If we did things that seemed to be perfect or when we achieved them, we felt like we got the love from our parents. Perfectionism can be a lack of self-acceptance and a desire to prove yourself worthy. Brené Brown talks a lot about hustling for worthiness. And essentially, being good enough or worthy coupled with a dash or two of shame is at the root of perfectionism. So what also happens when we're dealing with perfectionism? We procrastinate or we quit. Perfectionism keeps us from pursuing our passions and from showing up authentically in relationships because we're so worried we won't get it right. That it's easier to not do it at all. Or even worse, once we try and we fail, we set that goal and we miss the mark, we're done because the pain of trying again and possibly failing feels too great. Perfectionism destroys creativity because that little editor in your head keeps interjecting to tell you that it's not right, and it keeps you distracted from creating. Perfection is the enemy of getting things done. Perfection is the enemy of action, and it leads to despair. So what can we do about it? I know this sounds cliche, but it's just pure truth. Start on a journey of embracing your inherent perfections. How can we do this? I just read this book called 4,000 Weeks.
This is not a podcast about being broken, although you may have been. This is a podcast about strength for women who find themselves in difficult relationships, including that sometimes difficult one with yourself. We'll look at your relationship through a lens of psychology, faith, and a little dash of my own kind of feminism. We're not fixing them, we're fixing you, and that changes everything. Welcome to Stronger in the Difficult Places. Save yourself, heal your relationships. Listen in.
It's okay. Now let me tell you how ridiculously life-changing this concept is. I realize that I have spent the last 20 years with the expectation that one day I would be able to not have a to-do list, that if I worked hard enough, if I was efficient enough, or finally figured out how to do that, if I was productive enough, that there would be a time that my to-do list would be finished. Now we know, on a conscious level, we know that's ridiculous, but in a deeply emotional level, I felt that, and I've been working towards that hope. But the light bulb realization that that day will never come is actually embarrassingly beautiful and freeing. And just like there will never come a time when the list is done, there will never come a time when you have it all figured out and when you can figure out how to make it all perfect. And this isn't a deficit in you, it's just humanity. And when you can radically accept this, then you're released into a freedom to use your creativity to do the very darn best that you can and put it out to sail. So here are some tips on how to do that. Verbally or in writing, admit what perfection looks like. And whatever you're doing in that moment or that season, what does perfection look like? And then remind yourself it's not possible. So when you say, okay, it's not possible, then now explore with yourself, what does good enough look like? Give yourself permission to be good enough. And when it comes to other people, ask yourself what you want other people to think or feel about something. Go ahead, write it down. What do you want them to think or feel? And remind yourself, you can't make everyone happy. Everyone will not approve of you. You can't live for something that isn't possible to attain. So even if they don't like it, even if they are disappointed or judge you, your value remains the same. So ask yourself what instead is good enough for you. Give yourself a new standard. Applaud it when you meet it and give yourself grace if you don't. And when you fail, especially when you fail hard and you're disappointed, don't stop. Failure means you've learned something. If you ate that donut, the problem isn't that one donut. It's what happens after you tell yourself that you can't do it or that you've destroyed it all. One donut becomes 10. So stop at 1. Change your failure story and get back on track. And begin to recognize when you're comparing yourself to someone else and coming up short. The Greek slave turned philosopher Epictetus said this about perfection, and I think it's so good. He was comparing himself to the most envied people of his time, Socrates, who had a brilliant mind, of course, Milo of Croton, an amazing athlete, and Croesus, who was renowned for his wealth. This is what Epictetus said. And then, because I'm not naturally gifted, shall I therefore abandon all effort to do my best? Epictetus won't be better than Socrates. But even if I'm not too bad, that's good enough for me. For I won't ever be Milo either, and yet I don't neglect my body, nor a Croesus, and I don't neglect my property. Nor in general do I cease to make any effort in any regard, whatever merely because I despair of achieving perfection. And this goes for you too. You can only ever be yourself. We know that. So as you plan and dream and you look forward to what this year holds for you, remember that showing up every day and whatever way you do is good enough. Even if you miss the mark, even when you backslide, you are worthy and valuable, acceptable, and a unique miracle of God. We achieve what we want and experience a fullness in life, not in executing it perfectly, but in showing up day by day and doing the best we can, which is not perfection. And this year in 2022, may you strive for all that you want with forgiveness. Happy New Year. I will leave you with your words. Settling for more, determined, self-love, no, and
My word for 2022 is hope.
My word for 2022 is jump. I'm finally leaving my job and starting my business.
So my word for the year is longevity. Longevity for life, my family, health and fitness, and my career.
My word for the year is anchor.
My word for 2022 is harmony.
My word for 2022 is intentional. I want to be intentional with my thoughts, intentional with my behavior, and intentional with my words.
My word for 2022 is dream. I'm finally going to let myself dream this year.
My word for 2022 is boundaries.
My word for 2022 is energize. I want to bring energy to my marriage, to some professional endeavors, and to my workouts. Happy 2022.